All right. Welcome into a special simulcast edition of the Powers on Sports and Florida Football Insiders podcast. We are so honored to bring you the 1993 Heisman Trophy winner, national champion, 2006 College Football Hall of Famer, and a guy that everybody knows in the world and hard to believe it is his 30th anniversary of winning the Heisman Trophy this year, Mr. Charlie Ward. We really appreciate you joining us, Charlie.
I appreciate you having me, Jason, on the Powers on Sports.
Appreciate you being here. We really are thrilled to have you. And Charlie was a teammate of mine back in the day. I was a nobody on the Florida State team back then. But Charlie was such a awesome teammate and just a great guy to be around and all that good stuff. I want to ask you first. Can you believe it's been 30 years since you're going to be the 30th anniversary of you winning the Heisman Trophy? Can you believe it's been that long of time that's gone by?
No, I mean, not really. I mean, once I start adding up those years, though, it comes pretty quickly, 30. So. But I'm grateful that I get an opportunity to be here to see it and be a part of it. 30 years, being able to look back over the career and see all the many opportunities and blessings I were afforded through the people that I came in contact with, and also the experiences that I had over those years have been very memorable.
Yeah, I would imagine this year there will probably be some, and I don't. You can explain. I would imagine the Heisman Trophy Committee here, which in about a month will be presenting their Heisman Trophy, will probably be honoring you to some level and reminiscing of the 30 years. What is one of the? Tell the audience. Forget about the monetary stuff or whatever that may or may not be. What's the coolest perk from being a Heisman Trophy winner? What's a perk that maybe the average fan would have no idea that's just a really cool perk of being a Heisman Trophy winner?
Well, I mean, you get an opportunity to be around all the Heisman winners, especially during the Heisman weekend. And, it's, you're international. Your name is international in a lot of ways. A lot of people know what the Heisman Trophy is. And that's you're generational because you go into elementary school, kids may not know who you are from their perspective. They know the guys that's here today, but when you mention that you're a Heisman Trophy winner, they immediately go to knowing what the Heisman Trophy is.
Right.
And so it's it's a good deal to be able to have, being a part of the Heisman family. It gives you opportunities to be able to help others for sure.
Very cool. All right, I want to get a thought or two on Coach Bowden. Obviously, he's passed in the last couple of years. Just give me a thought or two on Coach Bowden. And obviously, we know what kind of great football coach he was and the great things he did for the university. Talk about what he did for you and some of the opportunities and maybe the belief he had in you. I mean, some people may not know your story. You didn't really get to play until your junior year. Very different than today's world of college football. You kind of had to sit behind the pipeline of quarterbacks that came through FSU back in those days. Talk about what Coach Bowden meant to you, just maybe more off the field than it was on the field.
Well, just the way he lived his life. I mean, he was faith, family, and football was his three main goals.
Right,
in
right.
life. And he lived them. That was more of an example than anything else. He lived whatever he spoke. And of course, he's not perfect like none of us. But he was just a genuine guy. He cared for his players. And, I was grateful that I had opportunity to play for him for 5 years. And of course, after that, you have a lifelong bond with him. And he was very instrumental in helping me, navigate my way once I got into the head coaching ranks of high school football. And so that was very encouraging and uplifting to be able to reach out to him and him giving me some words of encouragement or wisdom on, being a leader at that area. And, like I said, it wasn't just me. It was a lot. I mean, all the guys that he coached.
Sure, sure.
He has a genuine heart for, the kids that he coached. And, it was stemmed from his love for Jesus Christ.
Talk about how, and also you had the great thrill to play for your dad in high school too. Obviously, you don't know Charlie went to school at Thomas Central High School in Thomasville, Georgia, which is 30 minutes or so away from Tallahassee, so very close to where you grew up. Talk about playing for your dad in high school and just how, and then that transition, obviously, to going to play for Coach Bowden, and just the fun part of playing for your dad in high school.
Well, getting an opportunity to play for him, of course. I mean, I watched him as a young kid growing up. I went to practices, went to games. So I was in the environment that he was in, and just his genuine love for his student athletes as well, taking them home, being a father figure for those that weren't fathers, and also those that had fathers. He was a village dad. And so it was just encouraging to be able to see it, from that perspective, but also, see the work ethic, the discipline that he had at home, coming home and, grading papers.
Right.
All that he had after practice. We spent our time mainly watching sports. That was our way of bonding. So he was just a great inspiration, and then getting a chance to play for him. He taught me a lot about, being mentally tough. He put me in environments that I had to, learn from at an early age. Of course, sometimes we don't like being in those environments. We like being comfortable. But he put me in situations that I was uncomfortable. And so I had to learn how to take criticism and be able to, come back from it. But that was just a great encouragement to me moving forward, because it carried over, to, all of my days, especially at Florida State, not getting a chance to play quarterback at least for 3 years, but he gave me an opportunity to learn how to play multiple sports. He was my basketball coach, and he coached me football. He wasn't a particular coach, but a specific coach. A position coach, I should say. But he was always there.
How beneficial was it being that you lived close enough to home, especially maybe during your first couple of years at Florida State, and even during your junior year, which again, people don't remember. A lot of people don't remember your first year starting. You had some struggles early in the year there before you really started to get it cooking during that Georgia Tech game and such. How nice was it to know that if you needed to drive home on a Tuesday night and have dinner with the family, or go see somebody from high school that could help you out during those times of struggle, that you were close enough to be able to do that, where a lot of kids maybe couldn't do that because of the travel restrictions?
Well, that was one of the reasons I wanted to stay closer to home, was because it offered that type of support. And there was a school that was thriving, and a very good school that afforded me that opportunity. So that was one of the factors of me going to Florida State, was to be able to stay a little bit closer to home. And, if I needed to run up to Thomasville to see mom and dad or someone, or vice versa, they can come down and watch games or pop in here and there. That was part of the plan. So I was grateful that I had that opportunity.
All right, let's get to kind of your junction in the world that we live in now of NIL and decisions and all that good stuff. By the way, how much would Charlie Ward have been worth today in 2023 if NIL would have been around? Charlie Ward would have been worth a lot of coin at Florida State University in his senior year. That's for sure, huh?
Yes, I mean, we'd have been able to, take care of a lot of people. parents probably wouldn't have had to use their credit card to travel to
Right.
to the games. But it all worked out for us. But definitely would have enjoyed NIL.
Are you a fan of kind of the whole NIL system of kind of how everything's evolved, or do you think there ought to be some limitations on what a little bit of more, I won't say limitations, but a little more of regulation of kind of what's being allowed and maybe what isn't being allowed?
Well, I'm not sure about the regulations as far as I think there should have been some guidelines early on, especially when it came to recruiting.
Right.
Uh, of course, everyone has to talk about NIL, and now everyone has a collective at their school. But I think it was, very beneficial because those that are making, say a big chunk of the change are normally your more visible players, whether it's on social media
Right.
or on the field. But I think it just opened up the opportunity for others, for all student athletes, to be able to use their name, image, and likeness in other spaces. When it comes to paid internships,
Right.
and types of things are very, very important. Or paid advertisements, whatever that may be, however small it may be, but it's an opportunity for them to earn something outside of what they were getting, with the university. So I just think it was, something that needed to be done. Um, I mean, taking it to the next level of making them an employee and all of that, I'm not sure about that part,
Right.
but I think the NIL space is a good space for the student athletes to be able to, have that buffer where, it's not like having a, being on your own.
Right.
You do have that buffer of college and the support that you need during that time to be able to help you navigate your way and learn, while you're still growing and maturing as an adult, young adult, as we call it.
I could have seen Charlie Ward on the Bills bookstore sign and at Guthrie's Chicken back in the day doing some NIL stuff for sure. With
Well, and that was some of that was happening anyway. It was
yeah,
just I just didn't have the rights to be able to capitalize on it.
correct. Right. I totally understand. All right, let's take you to draft day 1994 in the NFL draft. Obviously, Heisman Trophy winner, and there was obviously the thoughts of the mobile quarterback and the spread offense and all that was nowhere near what it is today back in the early 90s NFL style. I know obviously you were disappointed that you didn't get drafted. Had things been pretty much equal, had you been a first or second round draft pick in the NFL, and obviously we knew you were a first round pick in the NBA, would your decision have been any different? Would you have gone to the NFL and given that a run before you went to the NBA, or were you content on going to the NBA all along?
No, I had options and I used those options. I continued to play basketball my senior year in college, which was part of the plan of keeping my options open.
Right.
And that kind of threw me out of the running as far as being 100% committed to the NFL process because I didn't stop playing basketball my senior year. But I was a senior point guard on that team, and I felt like my leadership as a senior guard was needed, and I wanted to do it. So I did it, and I wasn't making it a business decision. I was just following my heart, and God, allowed me to have options, and so I was grateful for that. But I did some of the things to get drafted, but I knew going in that I would be a third or fourth round pick, regardless of what I did. That was just the times,
Right.
and I understood that, and so I made the statement that if I didn't get drafted in the first round, the NFL draft, then I would consider my other options, and so that meant that no one felt like I was worth the first round pick. So I didn't get drafted, even though the Kansas City Chiefs did call in the fifth round. to ask if I got drafted at that point, would I come to camp? And I told them I couldn't guarantee them that I would, because if I got drafted in the first round in an NBA draft, then I was going to go to the NBA. So
it's still
God worked
it's
out.
still stunning to me that a team, even back in that time when the value of what you were able to do on the field was not appreciated, that a team did not spend a third or fourth round pick, even if they held your rights for a year and you didn't play for a year. It's stunning to me that a team didn't do that and have a little bit more foresight with as many smart guys that there are in the NFL, to not somebody to say, hey, I'm gonna use a third or fourth round pick, even if he doesn't play for me for a year, just to see if he would play a year later. That to me, that just is stunning that never happened.
Well, I mean, I think once it got to a certain point, no one's going to take that risk at that juncture, third or fourth round. But I got drafted in baseball twice,
right?
With that similar mind frame. But I mean, I understood it. It was no big for me.
Let's go back to your basketball days. Obviously, you made the comment that you wanted to stay and play your senior year basketball because of your leadership and your skills. Talk about the joy that came to you rising the FSU basketball program to the level that you brought it to when you finishing up. Obviously, we were new to the ACC. Football had been well established for several years, that they were dominant, but basketball had always been good, not great. But boy, you, Sam Cassell, Doug Edwards, Bob Sura, all those guys came together your last couple of years there and had just tremendous runs under Coach Kennedy. And I remember being in the Civic Center the night you guys beat North Carolina the first time, when Byron Wells hit the jump shot in the corner to beat North Carolina. Just talk about your joy of elevating the basketball program as well to such elite levels when you were there.
Well, I mean, I was one of the whole, and we all had to carry our own weight in a lot of ways in order for us to be able to elevate the program once we got into the ACC, because we knew the competition would be different than Metro Conference. But the talent was, I thought in Metro Conference, when you start looking at all the guys that came out of the Metro Conference during that time, were some NBA players as well.
Louisville, those kind of, all those, great teams.
Quite a few NBA quality players that came from the Metro Conference that I know I competed against in college and professionally. But we had to, continue to improve. When you start talking about Bob Sura and Doug Edwards, Doug was there, throughout. Rodney Dobart was there throughout. But we brought in Sam Cassell and Doug and Bob Sura throughout the process of us building it. And of course, all of us were first round picks, which was crazy. We had 4 guys that were first round picks that was on that team.
Right.
But it was just like anything else. You have to acquire talent. You have to acquire good chemistry, guys that buy in to what you're trying to get accomplished. And we were afforded that, with some very good players, and then players that all of us played our role, best of our ability. And so we were able to have some success.
Yeah, you guys were the perfect mixture. You were the kind of the ball distributor. Sam was the scorer. Bob was a scorer. You had Doug Edwards, a good low post player. Andre Reed was kind of a center. You had you had some role players off the bench. You guys were just the perfect mesh of different skill sets and teamwork and chemistry. And Coach Kennedy obviously put it all together. And you guys had such a great. You guys had 2 tremendous runs there your junior and senior year for sure. All right, let's talk a little bit. Let's go back to kind of the onset of the fast break offense. Obviously, your junior year, things are going up and down. You guys are winning, but you guys are having some good success on offense. All of a sudden, in the Georgia Tech game, you're behind late. You decide we're going to go up tempo. We're going to go fast break. We're going to go shotgun. Talk about the start of that, and after you had success in that Georgia Tech game. At what point was that early that following week that everybody came to the decision, hey, this is the way we're going to play from now on? Or how did that conversation go between you and the coaching staff?
Well, we that was our 2-minute offense that we were running, and we were behind quite a bit in that fourth quarter. So we needed to push the pace a little bit more. And believe it or not, we only ran like 3 plays. So it wasn't a lot of plays that were being called.
Right.
Just running a couple of plays here and there, and the others were, make a play in a sense. And then we were able to, fortunate to get the offside kick after we scored a couple of times, and to get the ball back. Defense all year they were keeping us in games because, even during that game, I had like 3 interceptions. So it was a tough go. Put us in that bad situation, but I was grateful that I was able to help, bring us out in a sense.
Yeah.
Quarterback. Then turn the football over that fourth quarter. But, the next week we came back and, they made a decision that we were going to play that way. We added some more plays and during the course of the week, and it progressed over the rest of the year to where we went no huddle. And it did a lot for, the defense, meaning it dictated what they were going to have to run in no huddle situation. And it helped not just myself, but all of us, be able to see it. And if teams are going to disguise, what they were trying to do, then they were going to have to do it a little bit quicker. And we could also recognize what they were doing. So it just gave us a little bit better advantage. And we continued to do it throughout the rest of the year. And it was relatively new on the scene. So a lot of teams hadn't done the no huddle. Most times people huddle up during that time. But it was something that gave us an advantage, and we were able to take advantage of it. Now, a lot of people say, well, you were better the second part of the year in the shotgun. Well, it might have been true, but I also had a lot of experience going into the second half of the year.
Right.
Because my first 4 or 5 games were really, my first year was the first year that I actually played, some live competition in a game.
In 3 years. It had been 3 years really since you'd played, really, right?
Or quarterback. I was the punter one year, but just live competition where you have to read defenses and do the plan. I prepare for all those things, but I didn't actually have the opportunity to do that before, because I had 2 guys in front of me. Right. And when I got in the game, we were running some basic plays. But it was more experience than anything else. The defense and offense did help, but it was more experience than anything else, learning from my mistakes. And that was very, very important.
I know it's going to lead to my next question about the talent level and the practices. Talk about, give the fans a sense of, and I can attest to some of this too, the practices on a Tuesday or Wednesday at full pads, the offense versus the defense, the ones versus the ones. They were incredible when you combine the talent level that was on both sides of the ball back in the early 90s there with Derek and all you can name 25 guys that played in the NFL on both sides of the ball during those couple of years. Just talk about the talent level of practice and how practice was so much, for a lot of you guys, probably harder than the games a lot of times, a lot of weeks.
Yes, it was very competitive in practice. The one-on-ones were always very spirited. 2-minute drill, we're always spirited. You think about our scout teams, the guys who were on scout teams at that time, we know them today. They were professional athletes.
Yeah.
And so it was, something that we always enjoyed the competition. it was always the case where for me, I was always down, in the pocket. So they didn't want to chase me those things. They would always, run by and say, "Well, I've got you." But I hear the same thing happens with Jordan Travis this day and age. But it's all in good fun, once it's all said and done. But goal line was always very, 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 very spirited.
Oh, yeah.
Because, offensively, we had gassers on the line.
Oh, yeah.
They had up downs or whatever it was that Coach Andrews had for them. And so it was always, very, very spirited goal line sessions.
Oh, I remember those goal line sessions, man. It would be a war, man. Coach Richt against Coach Andrews, and you guys were talking so much smack to each other between plays. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. So those were always good camaraderie for the group.
Yeah, that's the other part. Yes.
Competition.
For sure. All right, so a couple more and I'll get you out of here. Obviously, rivalries is a big thing with obviously during your career, you've been involved in some epic rivalries. Obviously, game of the century at Notre Dame, the rivalry with Miami and Florida. We are talking to you during the Miami week here this week. Just talk about from a collegiate perspective, just the different level of rivalries. Obviously, to me, back in the early 90s, Miami was a little bit more of a rivalry than Florida. They're both great, but at the time, Miami was so dominant as well. Let's talk about being involved in such great rivalries with guys that you've probably played some high school ball with, but just in the state of Florida in general, the rivalry between Florida State and Miami, Florida State and Florida.
It was always real, but the part about, on the field is totally different than off the field, because a lot of times, a lot of these guys played together, played in high school together, played against each other in high school. I know I played with a few guys that went to, all-star games.
Right.
That went, Miami or Florida. So, off the field.
Healthy respect.
It's all in fun. You want to win the game so you can have bragging rights for that year at least. And it's always spirited. I like to use that word, but it was the people in the stands were spirited. The guys on the field got after it. There are a lot of pro players on the field going back and forth. The competition was fierce. Even the games where, most of the games were close because of, the competition.
Oh, yeah.
The talent of the field. And so junior year, we weren't able to, overcome, some red zone issues that we had. We moved the football, but just couldn't score. But senior year, we were able to overcome with the late Devin Bush interception to seal it.
Right.
But scored 21 points in the first half, which was enough. And our defense was solid all year. They only gave up 10 points that game. So it was just, when you talk about rivalries, the team that makes the least amount of mistakes and the team that makes the big plays normally win those types of games. But you're always prepared and ready, because no matter what the records look like, the teams are going to be competitive.
And people don't realize 1993, when Florida State won the national title for their first ever national title, quarterbacked by this man right here. Non-conference schedule: Notre Dame, Miami, Florida, all non-conference. Obviously they lose the game at Notre Dame. Then Charlie probably makes one of the best plays in Florida State history that, again, some don't remember. 3rd and 10 at the Swamp, he throws a wheel route to Warwick Dunn up the sideline for about 75-yard touchdown to seal that game. And obviously you still have to play your ACC schedule, but playing a non-conference schedule like that, that was, again, something Florida State and Coach Bowden was known for, not afraid to ever play anybody. You had to play Florida and Miami every year, which was both non-conference at the time. Just that the gauntlet that Florida State had to go through, and then you obviously lose the epic game up at Notre Dame. But just that scheduling by Coach Bowden was something that also was such an allure for so many guys to want to go play there, right?
Yes. I mean, we always played those teams, non-conference. At that time, Miami and Florida, as you mentioned, were non-conference, and we played tough teams. Notre Dame was senior year, but when it's all said and done, we had the teams to be able to compete at a high level. So regardless of who we played and where we played, we were going to go and compete, and we had a team that could win, on the road, at home.
Right.
So it was one of those deals where regardless of who you play, you got to go and compete and execute at a high level. And unfortunately for us, my senior year, we weren't able to overcome a bad second quarter to come up with the victory. But we were able to, put together 11 other good games.
Right.
One in the regular season, and then we were afforded the opportunity to play in the national championship against Nebraska, and we ended up winning that game.
Right.
18-16, in I guess dramatic type fashion in a lot of ways.
Talk about and yeah, for sure. So, and speaking of rivalries, you had a couple epic NBA rivalries. You the Knicks and the Heat. When you're in town, every time you see Coach Van Gundy, do you still give him a bunch of heck about hanging onto Alonzo Mourning's leg under the pile there in the classic fight with the Heat?
We just knew that after. I mean, with that, we knew he had our back.
That's all right.
And unfortunately, that was the case. But he's a competitor as well, and he was doing the best he could with those Giants, trying to break up. But coaches, that's who he was, and that's the reason why we played the way we played. So grateful for him.
Is there a difference between the competitive rivalry in professional sports as opposed to college, or is it pretty much the same? Obviously in the pros, you guys are all adult grown men with families and all that stuff. Is the competitiveness any different at the two levels?
No, it's the same. I mean, once you get out there and compete on the court, like it's very similar. I had friends that were on the Heat. Bruce Bowen and I, we would go out to eat sometimes before the game.
Right.
Or after the game, after the game or the night before the game. So it's just what it was on the court. You compete at a high level and you continue to be friends. I mean, that's just the way it is.
You fight for 2.5 hours, then you go have some dinner after the game.
Right.
That's fun. How did you enjoy living in New York City, kind of the mecca of all that stuff? And you're pretty quiet, a pretty low spirited guy when it comes to going out and socializing, I would imagine. And I'm sure you had some teammates that like to live the lifestyle a little bit in New York City. How challenging was that for you to be able to want to make sure they didn't do stuff too much over the edge that hurt the team, maybe they're living too much in the lifestyle, living in New York City? How did that blend work out when you were the kind of the quarterback and the point guard of the Knicks?
Well, the professional lifestyle, especially in New York, we were afforded a lot of opportunities. That's what New York does, with shows, premieres, all those different types of things that you have access to. And that was all great. And, it also afforded other opportunities for those that want to do other things. I was just not that guy. I mean, I didn't go and hang out, at bars and clubs and those types of things. but others did.
How challenging was it to have to maybe talk to a guy that you could tell was maybe getting a little too wild at the nightlife, but you knew, boy, we need him, that we need his contribution to the team? Is that a fine line of talking to a guy to say, hey, settle down with the nightlife and we really need you here?
No, I mean, I didn't get into those guys and what they did. As long as they brought what they needed to bring, most of the times that was the case.
Right.
Guys who may have liked to hang out all times of night, but they came to practice. I mean, practice might have been a little different, but when it didn't hurt us in the sense of us being one team, them following what we needed them to do. But if it was something that needed to be addressed, I'm sure it was addressed in some form or fashion. If there were issues,
right,
during that time, we had access to sports psychologists, and other fields, and some of those were extreme cases. But when it's all said and done, we just had to come and play as one unit each and every night. And I mean, I didn't get down. I couldn't understand how guys could get in late and then go out, but that's what they did and wanted to do. And there was nothing I could say to stop them.
All right, last question. I'll get you out of here. You've now transitioned to the coaching world. You've been coaching for a bunch of years now, football, basketball, and Charlie Ward won the state championship in 2022 at Florida High in Tallahassee. Talk about the joy that you experienced being a coach on the other side of the ledger there a little bit, from coaching a state champion, high school kids, and just the joy of being on that side of the world.
Well, it's been a true blessing to be able to share my experiences with the young student athletes that I've coached over the years, and be able to help them with exposure to seeing things that they may not have seen otherwise, using my network to be able to help support the program, and so it's just been, and also being able to bring in coaches that are aligned as well to be able to help our kids develop and grow. It's been a great joy to be able to help those, student athletes grow in that area. Because, when it's all said and done, that was, someone did it for me. And I was grateful that I have an opportunity to be able to give back in that regard, to be able to help open the eyes of the student athletes that I've coached.
Well, Charlie, been a real pleasure. I really appreciate it. Charlie's also the author of the book, The Athlete, so definitely go find that on your favorite book outlet. Keep up the great work, Charlie, on and off the court, and on your charitable work. You do a lot of great stuff all over the place for a lot of people, and we really appreciate it. And Florida State legend, 1993 Heisman Trophy winner, national champion, state champion coach. Appreciate the time. Awesome visiting with you, sir.
I appreciate it, Jason. It's good seeing you.
You too. Take care and have a great let's go kick Miami's you-know-what this week too, buddy.
Who knows?
Take care, Charlie.
All righty.